Acting on the advice of New South Wales Premier Gladys Berejiklian, Queen Elizabeth has, as Queen of Australia, appointed the respected Justice Margaret Beazley to be Governor of New South Wales after General Holy takes up his role as Governor-General. The brevity of the announcement illustrates the simplicity, the efficiency and the economy of this proven method of finding leadership beyond politics, as well as of a significant and necessary check and balance in our constitutional system, as very few such systems anywhere in the world can achieve. And it's done this way. Although the Premier makes the recommendation, the appointed Governor is not in any allegiance to him or her. The Governor owes his or her loyalty to the Queen, the Sovereign to whom the Governor has sworn allegiance, and through the Sovereign to the Constitution and to the people. That's how it works, and there are numerous examples which demonstrate this. The loyalty to the Sovereign and not to the appointor. For example, that of Sir William McKell. This is something which we should not forget. It's something, in fact, we should cherish. Very few countries can attain this. Little wonder, then, that the question of the states was avoided in the attempt in 1999 to ram through the Keating-Turnbull Politicians' Republic at a federal level. Now, we shouldn't forget that the office of Governor of New South Wales is the oldest in the land. But even when New South Wales was a penal settlement, the Governor was never a dictator. He came with a Charter of Justice and operated under the rule of law. The fact is that the penal colony was never, as Malcolm Turnbull once completely wrongly claimed, a British version of a Soviet gulag. That Malcolm Turnbull was wrong can be demonstrated very simply. The very first civil case, Cable and Duncan, was brought by two convicts against a ship's captain, and they won substantial damages. So can Malcolm Turnbull point to one occasion when prisoners even sued, much less sued successfully, their jailers in a Soviet gulag or a Nazi concentration camp? The next point was when the British gave the colonies self-government. That was in the middle of the 19th century, and just how many colonial powers actually give self-government to their colonies? The result was the Governor became a local constitutional monarch, as the late Professor Patrick Hills describes him. So he provided leadership beyond politics and the constitutional check and balance in a local version of the Westminster system. Little wonder then that the Australian colonies progressed so quickly that by 1900 they had decided of their own volition to federate into one country and to become one of the world's 5 great federations. Indeed, this was to be the first time that the people themselves anywhere in the world had made such a decision. Now, the governors continued after federation at the state level and the Governor-General at the federal level, providing both leadership beyond politics. The next step was in 1926 when the British, under the Balfour Declaration, made Australia and the other 5 dominions independent. This was given legislative effect. The unusual thing about this, in relation to Australia and not the other dominions, was that the Australian states were not covered by this. This was only because the states didn't trust Canberra. They thought Canberra, particularly in relation to the governors, would use the governors as French-style provincial prefects, where they'd act on their instructions and not as local constitutional monarchs. This went down to 1986, by which time it had become an anomaly, and you had the unusual fact that state questions went by a recommendation from the state capital to the British Foreign and Commonwealth Office, where a British minister would convey the advice, say, on the governorship of Western Australia to the Queen. Remember, this wasn't a British plot. It was the states wouldn't trust Canberra from even being what it claimed it would be, just a letterbox. Finally, it was the Queen herself who provided the solution. What she effectively said was she was prepared to accept being advised not just by one Prime Minister, as with, say, Canada or New Zealand, but by a Prime Minister and 6 Premiers. And that came to pass in the Australia Acts in 1986, under which, apart from appointing and removing governors, the governor exercises all of the powers of the Crown within the relevant state. If the Queen's visiting, she can do the same. But she reserves, of course, the power to appoint and remove, and on this, it's the Premier who advises the Queen whenever she exercises those powers. Few countries in the world have been able to achieve what we have. Leadership beyond politics and sophisticated checks and balances within the constitutional system and at all levels of the federal Commonwealth. And this is all precisely because we are a federal Commonwealth under the Crown. Surely another reason not to adopt blindly some politician's republic, which will be doomed to upset our carefully crafted constitutional balance, just as was the Keating-Turnbull Republic in 1999. This is a report from ACM, which provided the engine room for the successful No case in 1999. Do join us. As it's always been, it's without any charge whatsoever. Just go to www.norepublic.com.au.